We're back in the backstory and bringing you news about Ukraine and Russia straight out of Moscow, Russia. Our friend, the great journalist, Sonia Van Den End. Hey, Sonia, how you doing?
Hi, Lee. Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So let's talk about first what happened in Germany today, because people were meeting and the U.S. is sending Abrams tanks and training to Ukrainians. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. They had a meeting in Ramstein, that's close to Frankfurt. It's the US headquarters in Germany. And they want to bring these Abraham tanks, but Pistorius, he's the German Minister of Defense, the new German Minister of Defense. Well, first he said it's a bit of a very difficult situation for Germany because, Second World War, Russians. But later on he said, no, we don't have any problem when there are attacks inside Russia. And also he agreed on these Abraham tanks. So, imagine this a German saying that he doesn't have any problem with Germany or the US attacking inside Russia. Actually, of course, he meant Ukraine, but we all know that it's NATO. So he has no problem with that. And this is very terrible. And Medvedev, he made a tweet about it today that, if you were going to do that, we were going to be coming to Berlin again like we did before in 45. So, yeah, it's unbelievable. A German minister is saying this in 2020 through so many years after the Second World War. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's not enough for the Ukrainians, is it? They wanted planes as well, and the U.S. is not sending planes. Is that right, Sonia?
Yeah, that's right. And also, they said in Germany, other EU countries, that for the moment they are not going to send planes. But you never know, of course. But this is for the moment. They will not do it. I think they are, a bit cautious to do it now. But they said for the moment, no.
Now, there's been a lot of talk in the press for weeks about the Ukrainians' spring offensive. Has that taken place yet? Any spring offensive yet?
No, no, it didn't take place. And what I heard is that maybe they only have for 10 more days, they have ammunition. I don't know if that's true, but that's rumors going on. And you know how they like to talk about this offensive, spring offensive. First, they had the winter offensive. Well, that didn't go on. Now spring, and they said also about Bakhmut or Artemovsk that they were going to liberate that. But it didn't work out because, they're getting all these old tanks now, these Leopard tanks. There was an accident as well today in Germany with one of the tanks. So it's not happening, and I don't think it will happen. It's not a spring one, not a summer one. I think they are, they're running out of, they're running out of ammunition. They're running out of maybe weapons. I don't know about that, and for sure about men, because I don't think they have many soldiers left at the moment.
So Sonia, one thing I think is important now is Jens Stoltenberg from NATO recently said Ukraine will not get into NATO unless they win the war. So that puts a lot of pressure on Ukraine. And I think NATO's been playing, to use a weird analogy, I think Ukraine's been treated like the mistress, and NATO's keeps saying, oh, no, I'm going to leave my wife and marry you eventually. Trust me. And eventually, does NATO not get what NATO, does Ukraine not get what NATO is doing to them? Ukraine, NATO is holding out membership, but they're sending, it's always off in the distance. It's always going to happen eventually. And I think saying that if Ukraine doesn't win the war, Ukraine's not going to win the war. There's no one who thinks that. So that's NATO's way of saying, well, sorry. Do you see what I'm saying about NATO and Ukraine? Sorry, did that make any sense?
Yeah, this is what they know. They are actually not blackmailing, but they are threatening Ukraine or the Ukrainian army or the leadership that you should win this war, or otherwise, yeah, you cannot join NATO, because if you lose, you are a loser. So what we do with losers in NATO? And of course, they are a bit cautious, because when Ukraine really joins NATO, then Russia will for sure do something. I don't know what, but Russia all the time is saying that it's a bridge too far or a red line when Ukraine really joins NATO. So, but this is actually what a lot of politicians who are also in NATO do. They threatening, they lie, they deceive, they making promises, and they never, comply with their promises. So this is what they do. And I think if you see other countries like, what is it, Albania, North Macedonia, they were promised to be member of EU, for instance. Well, this happened 10, 15 years ago. So they never do it. And now a new thing has come. The Dutch embassy, the Dutch government has opened an embassy in Moldavia this week. So to say because they got cyber attacks, a hybrid war there from Russia. And so they have to protect Moldavia, because Moldavia is also another member to become member of the EU. I don't know, I think if they are a member of NATO already. So this is what they do all the time. But you have to win. If you don't win for NATO or EU or whatever, then you're out. Then they cannot use you, I think.
And you're in Moscow. So what's the sense there when you talk to people of whether Russia is winning or losing? Because, we hear it in the Western press over here in the US all the time, Russia's losing. And it's nuts to me, knowing what I know. But what do people think in Russia? Are people optimistic, or what's the sense?
Well, I think, they know, they're optimistic, because it's like a mirror, the propaganda is like a mirror, that all they say in the West, and the people, I think, realize this now, what the people or the media outlets or propaganda outlets are saying now, is you have to look at up in the mirror, and you see the opposite happening on the battlefield. I mean, we don't know everything, of course. We know only a part of what is happening. But what I can say or see is that, people slowly but surely start to realize that, Russia is still here. Russia, we don't have any damage from sanctions. Ukraine is not inside Crimea. They didn't try to attack Crimea with drones. Sometimes they attack Belgorod, that's the border. So everything what they threatened, it didn't happen, didn't come true. So people know now that it's a lot of fake news what is going on in the West.
Yes, that's right. Now, one of the big political issues over here is the trans issue. And are people aware in Russia that that's a big political issue for us? Because I've said that I think Vladimir Putin was ahead of the curve on this. And we're getting surgery over here for kids, castration and double mastectomies for children. And Putin was ahead of the curve, warning against LGBT propaganda on children, not banning gay people or anything, but propaganda on children. And we're facing that in the US. So do people in Russia know how big an issue in the US trans issues are right now?
Well, yes, I think they are going to know it now. I also recently wrote an article about it, about the new woke religion. It's how I call it. And this week I had a conference for Novesti it was about child abuse in war zones, but also about what is happening in Europe, with all the refugees and child pornography, pedophilia. So this is now slowly but surely they also understand what it is. And in this article about this woke new religion, it's not only the US, it's like in the Netherlands, it's also a very big issue. last week somehow they have all these rainbow flags. One flag was stolen, and the whole government and I don't know, all celebrities. They said, "Oh, it's very terrible. The flag is stolen, so we now need to show the flag. You know, we have to hang them out of our windows." And this is really sick, and it's about children. When the drag queens are going to schools reading for children as young as 4 years old. I mean, and also like in the US, they have to get hormone blockers because some boys and girls, they don't know what they are, so they have to stop them growing into in young adults. So this is actually criminal, and this is what is going on in Russia, and this is what President Putin and the government said, well, this is not going to happen in Russia. And this is, I think, nothing to do with gays or whatever. I mean, you find them everywhere, and as long as they keep to themselves or whatever, you find them here too. But you know, there's no propaganda for it, but it's really focused on children, you know, pedophilia and so on. So this is really worse. It's very terrible in the US, and I think the whole of Europe. I think it's criminal what they do.
I'm glad you mentioned Holland, because there was a video clip I saw, but it was in Dutch, and I don't speak Dutch. A few words. I'm sure you saw that. The Dutch host with a panel of children, and they had naked people on the set, a man, a woman, a trans person, and so on. And they're showing the children and getting. You saw that clip, right, Sonia?
Yeah, it's awful. It's a program on TV, or they even show it in schools. This is how they show the children. And they are naked, yes. And oh, I'm a transgender, or I have this, I'm that, I'm a woman, I'm a man, and just look at it, and it's disgusting. It's really disgusting. It's what can I say? I mean, this is how children get indoctrinated. And I always wonder what will happen to these children when they are older. They are totally brainwashed, and you know, they don't know who they are anymore. So I think this has to stop. And this is what they emphasize here. This is really bad, this whole transgender thing.
And Rod, you saw that clip, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't speak Dutch, but Rod, you saw the clip we're talking about, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It was on Twitter.
Yeah,
Rod?
it was on.
I did. I only saw a few seconds of it, Lee. I didn't, I get tired of seeing this stuff. It's disgusting.
But it's, I thought, a great example. You can't say they're not trying to indoctrinate children, because the children are sitting right there. The purpose of that was to indoctrinate children. Am I right, Rod?
Yeah, to demoralize them, Lee, to just break, destroy their the innocence of children. That's what the main goal.
And Sonia, the other country I'm seeing fight against this, because also the Western countries like it to force this agenda down everyone's throat. So in other words, if you're part of the EU or NATO, you're going to get this. And the one country pushing against that I see is Hungary. And you've seen that, right, Sonia?
Yes, of course, I've seen it. And Hungary is against it, like they were against this refugee crisis. But I also think that, they will have a big problem. That's maybe why Albania or North Macedonia is not in the EU as yet. Because in North Macedonia, there are a lot of Orthodox Christians, there are a lot of Muslims. The whole of Albania, you can say, is Islamic country. So imagine they have to put all this woke ideology there, and this is not going to work. It's not going to work in these countries. Even like in Poland, you see Poland as well. It's a crazy country. I mean, not the country, but the government in Poland. And it's not going to work there also. So they're having a problem. It's mainly Western Europe, Germany, France. This is, they try it there.
And even in Holland, a very liberal country, I do not think that the people in Holland, Dutch citizens, actually want this. I do not think that there's not a big majority outcry for this ideology. What do you think, Sonia?
No, I don't think so, because even I agree. The Netherlands is, it's a very liberal country, too liberal in my opinion, but okay. But you also have a big part that they call the Christian belt. This is where the Christians live, and they are not Catholics, but these Dutch Reformed churches, and they're very strict. They are opposing it, of course. So, and you still find a lot of people there. And on top of that, you have now a large, well, nearly a majority of refugees from Middle Eastern countries, also Ukrainians. They all have their religion, and it is only a minority who is pushing this agenda. It's in the mainstream media. It's the politicians. A few, not all the politicians, because it's usually the most liberal politicians. So they are pushing this agenda, and they're making, they're making a fool out of themselves, I think, because, what you can say, half of the country is not agreeing on this. So. But they still try, it's their agenda. They have to, from, Agenda 2030, this Klaus Schwab. So they have to push this agenda.
And like I say, it's not just the economics, which have worked out very badly. That's why you have the Dutch farmers protesting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what is terrible? The Dutch farmers are protesting, and they have to reduce their nitrogen level by, now it was 2030, I think, now with this new political party in 2035, but still they have to do it. But on the other hand, they give 40 million to the Ukrainian farmers. Imagine this, to rebuild their farms. It's unbelievable.
Right. That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Now, what are you hearing about Backmode? Russian forces seem to be advancing. Basically, even the Western media is pretty much admitting that Bakhmut. The Washington Post did a piece yesterday saying officials tried to warn Ukraine they were going to lose Bakhmut, and Bakhmut seems to be 80%, 85% in Russian control, but not 100%. What are you hearing, Sonia, about Bakhmut?
Yes, that's what I'm hearing too, but I actually think that we can speak that it's nearly liberated. It's maybe, some battalions somehow there and there still fighting, but I think we can say it's nearly liberated. Maybe it's just a matter of time before it's the 100%, but they are retreating now, the Ukrainians. That's what I think, because 80%, it's quite a lot, And I'm following the Wagner group. I write sometimes articles for them as well, and I think they are in control of nearly the whole of Bakhmut. So it's just a matter of propaganda from Western side again, saying that we fight till the last man and women, and but I think it's lost. They admit it in every news outlet now that actually it's lost. So I think it's a matter of time.
So it seems like Zelensky was keeping the Ukrainian troops in Bakhmut when they should have pulled out to save their lives. Is that your sense? Zelensky was the one pushing that, and not his generals, and not the West, but Zelensky himself?
Yeah, of course, because he needs to win. I mean, he will not win, he knows that, but he has to, play along maybe for the US or NATO that, he needs to win and is doing his utmost best to win. But, sometimes I've seen graveyards and, Murat Gadziev from RT, he was showing one time about all the dead Ukrainians there. There are so many. I think they lost a lot of them. And recently also they found all the badges from the French Legion, from the Georgians, all countries, Germans. So all foreigners, mercenaries, they killed. A lot of them are killed there. So it's criminal what he's doing. He's really, he really doesn't care about his people if you think about that, because he knows he's losing. It's what Hitler did in the Second World War with Stalingrad. Tell Paulus, that general, yeah, just please keep on going and you cannot retreat. But they know it's lost. So he knows it's lost. But yeah, he won't give up.
Well, that's why I brought up Zelensky. You nailed it, actually. I think that he is betraying his own people. And I think that at some point, the Ukrainian people are going to rise up against Zelensky, maybe in a limited form. But I don't think even the military is loyal to Zelensky. Do you get that sense, Sonia, that Zelensky could be isolated and, there could be an uprising against him eventually? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But of course, I mean, a lot of West Ukrainians have left for Germany and other European countries. But I think in the end, the US will drop him and NATO or EU will drop him because, yeah, it's just an actor. He's not. And of course, he took precautions already. I heard that he had already a British citizenship, so a British passport. But I think the Ukrainian people are getting a little bit sick and tired of him. But maybe it's not enough yet. But for sure, the Donbass, or what is now the new Russian territory.
Well, I'm also reminded that Zelensky was not that popular before the special military action started. So before the special military action, Zelensky was like a 32% approval rating. Remember that?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's very strange that he became president. But of course, we know he is pushed and paid by this oligarch Komolsky. So because he was an actor, he was doing all these programs about what he was going to do when he would be president. So I think a lot of people thought in Ukraine, oh, it's a crazy guy and it's an actor. And yeah, but we see now he is an actor. I mean, he has his own clothing line going around with his shirt and, with his voice, his funny voice, and we are going to win. But I think the people know by now in Ukraine that actually he's fake. When you see him, he is really fake, to my opinion. But I think the Ukrainians as well.
But also Poroshenko, who the U.S. basically put into place before Zelensky, Poroshenko was extremely unpopular, 6% approval rating at one point. So, they have had no good president for the people I would say, since Yanukovych. What do you think, Sonia?
Yes, that's what I think too. And I mean, a president should be elected, or at least should be popular among the people. Otherwise, he's not fit to rule, I think. And I think Ukraine never, except Yanukovych, never had any real president who they liked. So who was really good for the people, who the people stood behind him. And this type Poroshenko, he was from the chocolate, he's the oligarch in chocolate. He started the whole thing by attacking the airport in the Donbass, in Donetsk. And he started his so-called terroristic operation against the Russian-speaking people there. So yeah, he's actually a shame that he is still walking around freely somehow, because he started this, as I call it, a civil war. And Ukraine never had any president who was popular except Yanukovych, and he fled to Russia.
Now, so the last thing I want to talk to you about is China and Russia. We've seen Xi Jinping go over to Moscow, and we also saw meetings with China's defense minister. And I think in the West, the media over here is in denial. They say if China and Russia get together, but I say it's already happened. Is China and Russia again? And TASS had to do a story the other day. Russia had to say, in opposition to the West, look, we're not trying to get help from China and Ukraine. And China came out and said, because the West acts like, well, China's not helping Russia and Ukraine, but Russia doesn't need China and Ukraine. Am I right, Sonia?
Yes, of course. And, I think China has this policy that they will not mingle in the affairs of other countries. They never did. And yeah, they don't need China to solve the problem in Ukraine, the military operation. But the West is now focusing on China. You can see that everywhere on Twitter, media. They try to make war, I don't know, with China. They're crazy. But I think they realize that you have a big bloc now, that's China and Russia. They are together. And imagine this against the West, against especially Europe. Europe is very tiny compared to Russia and China. And the US is doing everything they can to provoke China. We know that with Taiwan. But we already have what President Putin called here, or the government is calling it here, a multipolar world. And this is very hard to accept in the Western world, because the US and also Europe, they were for, decennia long, they were the unipolar world. They were in charge of the rest of the world, or they thought they were in charge. And now we can also see Africa is denying the US. They are kicking US and especially France in Europe, kicking them out. So the world is changing so rapidly, and they are in denial. They still are in denial, but they have to face up that, the Western world is not the power anymore. It's Russia, and China is the upcoming new world, we can say.
Now, I got a dumb question for you, and you might not know the answer to this, but I'm curious about it. When you go to a Russian electronics store, do they sell phones from Huawei, the Chinese manufacturer?
Yes, they do. A lot of them. There still are some phones from Samsung left and so on, but they're getting less. I could see that. But of course, Huawei is a lot of phones, and these other brands, Xiaomi or something it's called. Yeah, they haven't. Yeah, there's plenty of them.
And because Huawei phones, I saw them for the first time in London a few years ago, and they're very good phones, actually. So they don't have the iPhone there. Apple stopped manufacturing, but if Huawei's there, Russians have access to very good phones. Is that right?
That's right. Me myself, I have a Huawei, so but I didn't buy it here. I had it already when I took it from Europe. But it's very good quality. They're good phones, and they're not so expensive as well. So yeah, it's. I think the West thinks that they now, they will not have Apple anymore. The iPhones are gone. Well, okay. That's it then. So we have other phones here, and they're good as Apple or iPhone. Maybe better, some of them. I don't know. Cannot judge that. But yeah, it's in the electronic stores. There's a lot of things for sale, but only the Western branches are. You can see they're going less and less. But okay, the Chinese are coming and selling their stuff, so that's good.
So, very good. And as usual, Sonia, thanks so much. Great report and great conversation. Thank you for being part of that backstory. Let's take a short break, and we'll come back with more on the backstory.
Thanks, Lee.